I played a billion video games this year. Most of those games were Mario. Turns out that guy has a lot of video games. The reviewing every Mario game series was something that I'd been wanting to start for a while, so a lot of my gaming energy was spent on that. Because of this, I didn't play an extremely high volume of games outside of that, so this year's actual list is a little bit shorter than normal. But as usual, there's old games and new games and even a bear. Just kidding, there was no bear. Thank you, Xbox. As of the latest episode of reviewing every Mario game, I've played all the way up to the very beginning of the 3D era, but I'm not about to tell you Mario 64 was one of my favorite games this year because that would be stupid. But when I did get around to playing games made during this millennium, I determined that 2023 was probably the most bipolar year for video games in a while. The industry was constantly flip-flopping between really good news and the worst news ever. Unity, the engine powering Yooka-Laylee and Yandere Simulator, basically wrote up a new contract that let them steal their money back from developers who already paid for the software. What else? Naughty Dog canceled Last of Us 2 multiplayer. I don't know why I expected anything else from a company run by a dude who doesn't use the word fun. Gollum was a game I was kind of interested in, you know. Smeagol was always my favorite character from Lord of the Rings. He's a conflicting mix of pure wickedness and crushing tragedy. That actually sums up the game pretty well. But let's talk about good news. Now, 2023 was kinda like a makeup year for 22, where half the stuff that came out was supposed to come out the previous year. Mario movie. This was one of the biggest moments for me. Seeing Mario get another shot at being a big movie star, you know, it wasn't a masterpiece, but it remarkably looked and sounded like the games, with the authentic art direction and the wealth of musical references, which we only got about 70% of because they kept replacing it with Take On Me. It was a big year for video game adaptations. We had The Last of Us TV show, which was about 70% faithful to the games. Tons of people loved this adaptation, which was kinda bittersweet to me. On the one hand, it's great to see non-gamers finally realizing that video games can tell great stories. On the other hand, I'm a little sad that it took The Last of Us of all games to bring them to that conclusion. But maybe now we can get these guys to start playing some real high-level intellectual titles like MGS2, Mother 3, and Chicken Shoot. The other big game adaptation was Five Nights at Freddy's. This has been in development so long that the Five Nights at Freddy's continuity was retconned 8 times in that interval. It's a very self-contained story, focusing on a loose interpretation of the first game instead of trying to tie it into the convoluted chronology that now represents the series, which was a good move. Maybe the next one will have a Willy's Wonderland crossover. The Borderlands movie got pushed back to this year. Borderlands 4 might be coming out someday. When I was 15, the Borderlands series was the best series ever made as far as I was concerned. But as an adult, they're more like a Seth Rogen movie, which is to say if there was really nothing else to play, or if my friends offered to play it with me, I'd be like, alright. Then out of nowhere, on a Tuesday night, hello, it's me, Shigeru Miyamoto, and I'm making a live-action Zelda movie with Avi Arad. Holy mother of Jesus' mother. Aside from how terrifying it is that Miyamoto can just casually hijack Nintendo's Twitter account for big announcements anytime he wants, this is definitely exciting news. However, with a game like Zelda, there are far more vectors for failure, and none of the named collaborators have a perfect track record, so there is a very real chance this could be an abomination when it actually comes out. The plot and the story are far more important to a Zelda game than they ever were in a Mario title. The Illumination style of writing is not going to cut it this time. So, if Ganon does get a musical number, and it's not a Disney-style villain number, I will eat my copy of Ocarina of Time. Harry Potter is allegedly a very competent Western RPG, but so is The Witcher 3, and I do not like that game, so that was all I needed to know. While it would be fun to recreate that scene where Ebony goes to an MCR concert in Hogsmeade and makes out with Draco in the Forbidden Forest, that is canon, right? Baldur's Gate. Now, the production value on this game is phenomenal to my understanding, but it's also a massive time commitment, and a lot of the gameplay is dialogue and navigating menus, so I've been reluctant to get it. From what I understand, Baldur's Gate 3 is the best at what it does, at least that's what people tell me. I just don't necessarily know that I'm a big fan of what it does fundamentally. Starfield was supposed to legitimize the Series X as a platform. I still haven't bought one, so I guess it didn't do a good job.
I see commentary that if you just build great games, everything would turn around.
Oh, great idea, Phil. Try building great games. That's a good thing that you should try.
It's just not true.
But Phil, you didn't try. Modern Warfare 3 made the Act Man die of cringe. He's dead. He's not coming back. Happy New Year, Call of Duty. You killed somebody. I've held off on getting a PS5 or a GPU made after 2016, but hearing the things people are saying about Alan Wake 2, I am very tempted to stop eating food for a month to get one. In terms of announcements, 23 was a fever dream. I did not think Nintendo would ever sign off on a 1000-year door anything, let alone a full remake for the Switch. I did not think Donkey would ever show up in an official Nintendo Direct video. I did not think Konami would ever start re-releasing Metal Gear, and I especially didn't think there'd be a Bloodborne remaster. And I was right, but you know what game is getting remastered? The Last of Us Part 2. Naughty Dog, what the fuck is going on over there? This game is already playable on the PS5. Rockstar! Oh, that's just GTA 6, whatever. To say that expectations for GTA 6 are stratospheric is to be a joker. Expectations for this game are galactic, you know what I mean? We've been waiting a long time for this. We've been stretching GTA 5 out over 3 console generations. That's 10 years so far without a new game.
I want something that isn't this.
And you might be wondering, geez, why did it take so long? Because somebody keeps leaking all their shit.
We won, man! We won!
If you're a Banjo-Kazooie fan, 10 years might not sound like a long time, but for normal people, that is an eternity. It's set for a 2025 release date. It's probably gonna get delayed, but at least in the meantime, you can play Saints Row. I mean, you shouldn't, but you can. Fire Emblem 3 Houses. Every year, I play this game for 3 hours, I beat like 2 missions, and then I never touch it again until the following year. It's very hard for me, specifically, to play games where 50% of the gameplay is talking to people. But at least the people are nice to talk to.
Were you a cook at the castle in Ferdiad?
No.
Did your family own an eatery of some kind?
No.
Wow, that's all?
No.
I just want to get to know you better.
No.
I think we have a lot in common.
No.
I'm learning so much from you to do.
Fish are fat.
Could you give me some advice about other kinds of meat besides fish?
No.
Most of the best games I played this year that are not on the list are made by fans. I did 2 marathons this year, one in the summer and one in the winter, so I played a lot of these. MyHouse.wad was like the B3313 of Doom mods. I am so impressed by how slowly this game unveils its frightening elements. There's also an incredible Mario 64 hack called Beyond the Cursed Mirror. I loved this one big time. And OOT Indigo? Dude, you don't even know, okay? You think you do, but you don't. Hopefully, we'll get a lot more fan games this year so I can keep doing these marathons. It's always great to see what the fans are up to. And with all that said, it's party time. I almost beat Portal 2 way back in 2016-ish, but for some reason I kinda just stopped playing it, and I can never remember why. In 2023, I finally beat it, and it was definitely worth it. This is one of those mythological games that a number of people consider to be one of the greatest video games ever made. The plot twists, the writing, the humor. Some people will criticize it today for having that cringe-worthy style of self-awareness.
Hello, this is the part where I kill you. Had a bit of the brainwave.
But that's because this game was one of the original purveyors of that kind of humor. And even without that dumb shit, you also have J.K. Simmons as Cave Johnson, who could not have been better cast.
Your test assignment will vary depending on the manner in which you have bent the world to your will. Those of you who volunteered to be injected with praying mantis DNA, I've got some good news and some bad news. Bad news is we're postponing those tests indefinitely. Good news is, we've got a much better test for you. Fighting an army of mantis men.
If I ever find one of these lying around again, I swear to fucking God, I want that wall-crawling arachnid prosecuted!
And it's also a pretty fun game too. This is over a decade old, and I'm still very impressed by the kind of puzzle solving the game facilitates. They added speedy goop and bouncy goop, which is such a dumb, funny thing that fans actually made a community mod dedicated entirely to those mechanics. If you still have not played Portal 2, you gotta do it now before somebody brings it up in conversation and you have to admit that you never played it, and then they look at you funny. Sometimes I look at all the games coming out today and I go, do I even like video games anymore? Then a game like Elden Ring comes out and says, of course you do, you dumbass. Elden Ring was my game of the year last year, but before it came out, I promised myself, in the interest of my mental health, that I would never play a Souls game. But then From Software was like, fuck you, here's Elden Ring, the objectively greatest game ever invented, and now I have beaten every single Dark Souls because I'm better than you. Dark Souls 2, this game is funny, especially the way you can't summon anyone for help if you're hollow. Demons is his souls. I love how you lose half your health bar when you die. Just a great mechanic that presents zero logistical issues whatsoever. Bloodborne lets you make your character look like this, and Dark Souls 3 lets you make this guy. Look, they're brothers. Hi! If you are the type of person who gets pissed off at video games, any one of these games will be a spiritual journey. The bosses are so brutal and punishing, and some of them will expect you to spend more than 3 hours walking all the way back to them every single time you die, which will make you want to eat a brick without any salt. But if you're really willing to have the patience to push through these games, you will walk away with some of the most satisfying and rewarding gaming experiences you can have. And also Demon Souls. But I gotta be honest, without counting Elden Ring, the game I enjoyed the most out of all of those was Dark Souls 1. There is something uniquely enchanting about this game and its world that is rivaled only by Elden Ring's own Lands Between. The interconnected, layered design full of branching pathways that lead back to each other. It feels so naturalistic and immaculately designed. By the end of this game, you truly will feel like you've been through the fire and the flames, literally. Some people say that this game is hard, but they're just not good at video games like I am, which is why I beat ONS on my first try. Of course, what you gotta remember about Dark Souls is that all of these games do have an easy mode. You just gotta unlock it by farming souls for 300 years. Dark Souls 1 legitimized the roadmap started by Demon Souls, and it's not only an important video game, but is also a game that expanded my own understanding of what makes video games so good. I love this shit. But I don't love this. The GameCube is now as old as the NES was when the Virtual Console dropped for the Wii. So for the last half decade or so, my entire personality revolved around yelling at Nintendo for not remastering the GameCube library of games. I kept saying, why no Pikmin 1 and 2? Why no Thousand Year Door? Why no Mario Sunshine? Why no Metroid Prime? As of 2024, every single one of those games have either been re-released or have been announced to be re-released, and it's bittersweet because I really wanted those games to come out. But now that I can't complain about them not coming out anymore, I feel like I don't have a purpose. Nintendo did the exact thing I've been wanting them to do, and now I don't know where to go from here. Well, I guess they still didn't do Mother 3. Of those games I just mentioned, Metroid Prime was the only one that I never actually completed until this year. I figured if this game ever came back, it would be a port job like Pikmin 1 and 2, but no. This is a fully fledged visual overhaul, and for a Switch game, the graphics are phenomenal, and it's running at a mostly perfect 60 FPS. It not only looks better than ever before, but it also plays better. I remember playing the original GameCube version and getting so fed up with the controls that I just quit 8% of the way through the game. The remaster added a modernized dual thumbstick control setup, which ended up saving this game for me, allowing me to actually appreciate all the stuff that made this game great in the first place, which are of course the same things that make it great today: atmosphere, exploration, solitude. This was a Hall of Fame title for the GameCube, and now it's a Hall of Fame title for the Nintendo Switch, and who knows, maybe it's secretly a dry run for the graphics engine powering Prime 4. 2023 was the year I finally beat Super Mario RPG, and how perfect that Nintendo would just drop a remake of that game the same year. This is one of those dream remakes that me, and I imagine a lot of other people, never actually thought was going to happen. Whether you're playing the original or the remake, this is a game that is more than worth your time, especially considering that it's a relatively short RPG that doesn't demand an exorbitant time commitment to begin with. So many of the things you love about Mario RPGs started here, whether that be the action command system that makes the turn-based combat more interesting, or the original stories and characters. All roads lead back to Mario RPG one way or another. And holy shit, they're remaking Thousand Year Door. I still can't believe that. The original game still looks great in its own right, but I have been spoiled by the remake's audiovisual prestige. This game just looks so pretty and robust, and the music is incredible. Finishing a turn-based battle in an RPG never feels as cheerful and upbeat as in Mario RPG. Tears of the Kingdom is slightly low on this list only because of how derivative it is of Breath of the Wild. But of course, Breath of the Wild is still pretty fun. Except now you have the tools to break the game in every single situation. What do you even want me to say about this game? It was finished in 22, but then they delayed it by a whole year to finish it better. And finally, people who use that Miyamoto quote on Twitter have their secret weapon. With Tears of the Kingdom, the world of Breath of the Wild is now Elden Ring. You have giant floating islands in the sky and an entire underground civilization. This is the biggest game ever made, and it retains the mechanical versatility and openness to experimentation that made Breath of the Wild so refreshing. You can glue a fucking thing to another thing, and then it does the thing that you think it does. You might think it won't do that, but then it does. You can glue a spring to a shield and bounce on it like Sonic the Hedgehog. But then my capture card started dying during that part. That was heartbreaking. But if open world games were always this fun, I would grovel at the feet of every Ubisoft employee. Even though I've never played an Armored Core game before 6, playing this game felt like returning to an old friend that I hadn't seen since middle school, yet hasn't changed a bit. You play as a big robot and blast the shit out of other big robots. This is a mid-2000s style video game, but with actual graphics. I will never forget fighting this big bitch in the desert stage or the sandworm from Dune. This is a ridiculously over-the-top video game that will make you feel like a kid watching a Michael Bay Transformers movie. And even though I never played with Transformers as a kid, this is what it's supposed to look like in your head. This is not the single most refined video game in the world, but it is the coolest one. Lies of P is the Pinocchio of Dark Souls. I mean, the Dark Souls of fuck. Lies of P is probably most familiar to Bloodborne above the others, but it takes place in the industrialized city of Krat, where robo-puppets have suddenly risen up after being forced to do menial labor for years. Which I'm pretty sure could never happen in real life. It wears its influences on its sleeves, which is an understatement, but it still feels surprisingly different and unique. And a lot of that has to do with its setting, which is incredible. Like Tears of the Kingdom, it's derivative in many ways, but it's derivative of something that I really dig, so it's hard to complain. I mean, most of the best games in the world are somehow derivative of something else, right? Fighting these deadly robo-bitches with handlebar mustaches, I always knew Elden Ring was missing something, I just didn't know what it was. But now I do. Visually, there are games that look better than this, you know, they exist, but it still looks incredible to me, and the fact that I can run it at max settings at 60 FPS with my mid-range 2017 PC, it definitely says something. The story is more heavy-handed than its inspirations, but that's kinda welcome after blitzing the entire Souls series, and I'm sure somebody who's way smarter than me can explain it a lot better than I can. I cannot believe that my second favorite game of 2023 is a 2D Mario platformer. Nintendo had a lot to prove with Super Mario Bros. Wonder. Not counting Mario Maker, the last big dog 2D Mario before this one was New Super Mario Bros. U. Now, you may or may not like this game, but you probably wouldn't call it one of Nintendo's masterpieces, you know, it's no Punchball Mario Bros. We're talking about here. I think for me, this game felt like a game that Nintendo made out of necessity so they can ensure that at least one Wii U game would make money. But I seriously doubt anybody bought a Wii U just because it had New Super Mario Bros. U on it. The first new SMB from 2006 was a revitalization of a series that was on an indefinite hiatus. But after U, it felt like it was overdone. Mario Wonder had to be more than just new SMB 5, and other than the fact that it's still a 2D Mario game, it is. It handles so sharply and effortlessly that I can never go back to new SMB. It's so snappy and precise to a level that rivals even the best of its predecessors. The animation and music is so expressive, and I cannot even begin to describe the look on my face as I chase down the stupid chipmunk. Every part of this game is made to feel so significant and powerful. There are a ton of little things that end up adding up to so much in the whole package. Like how when you ground pound, you get a drum roll and a cymbal crash as you land. This is a weird Mario game, which is definitely a compliment. There is a level where a chorus of piranha plants and bullet bills try to kill you to the beat of the music. This pretty much sums up the entire game. Mario Wonder is surprisingly challenging, at least compared to new SMB. It won't make you want to eat your own fingers like Lost Levels, but there is a level where you have to play as a Goomba, and it is the worst thing I have ever seen. Before this part of the game, I died like 5 or 6 times and had 37 or so lives saved up. By the time I beat it, I had like 15. Obviously, when you put a level like this in a video game, I cannot in good conscience give you 5 stars because that sends the message that it's acceptable. But I definitely would, pending the removal of just this one level. But seriously though, this is an incredibly fun video game. Super Mario Bros. Wonder is the first new 2D Mario in 300 years, and it's also the best 2D Mario in 300 years, and if you have any respect for who Mario is and what he does, you will play this game. Pikmin 4 is the only video game where you will fight a disco ball spider and he has his own outdated 2014 MLG montage music. I have been waiting for this game for over 10,000 years, and it was damn well worth it. From the beginning, you can tell that Pikmin 4 is truly special. When you're playing a Switch game and the graphics are actually kinda good, that is a very good sign. After all this development time, Nintendo had to deliver the biggest Pikmin game ever made, which is why the post-game is longer than Pikmin 1 and 2 combined. This is easily the most feature-rich Pikmin game ever made, and it's full of references and fan service for longtime Pikmin. Every single Pikmin is back, except for the Bulbmin. That crushed my soul into 1,000 pieces. More treasures than ever before. You can find a music box that plays Zelda music. It's almost like a fan game with all of these references. Nighttime expeditions turn into a tower defense game. Dandori challenges where you have to get everything in the time limit. They've taken Pikmin in so many directions that it keeps the game fresh even for its surprisingly long duration. This is easily one of the greatest games for the Nintendo Switch and my absolute favorite game of 2023. Before the game came out, I could have thought of a billion ways they could have messed it up, and now that it's finally out, I feel dumb for worrying so much. And with the re-release of Pikmin 1 and 2, Nintendo might have finally managed to legitimize this series. I'm telling you, man, play this game. They have done so much with the idea of Pikmin that it almost feels scummy and entitled to think about Pikmin 5. But, Nintendo, please don't take another 10 years to make Pikmin 5.